Okay, let's see if we can get through this together. Proverbs 21. Hang on, I have to make a note real quick. God sent me a dream a while back that a lot of things I'm doing are like, sorry, hang on. I wonder if this is better like this. I wonder if I should hang it. I'll be right back. Okay, so I just did a whole bunch of verses, and I forgot to hit record. I mean, I guess I was recording up here, but I want the face-to-face. There's always something, right? There's always something to kind of waste your time. By the way, you look kind of pretty good here. Got a nice little bucket. Oh, I'm losing fat in my face. Been working out. I have there's this idea that I might be married by October, which would be awesome. So I'm trying to get in shape. You know, want future wife to have a good-looking husband that she can drool over. Metaphorically speaking. Anyways, been hitting the gym, been eating healthy. I now reach for oranges and fruit instead of reaching for soda and cake. Proverbs 21. A king's heart is like channeled water in the Lord's hand. He directs it wherever he chooses. All a person's ways seem right to him, but the Lord weighs hearts. Okay, so the king's heart is like channeled water in the Lord's hand. He directs it wherever he chooses. So we've talked about this, right? We want to be righteous. We don't want to lust after women that aren't our wives. We want to stay away from people who are trying to seduce us. We want to be good with the law. We want to make smart choices. We don't want to be corrupt. And then we see the productivity. We get to be more productive. We get to we have kids and society moves forward, and we obey God and we get a good civilization, and then we get a civilization that moves further, etc., etc., etc. And so now we see the king's heart is like channeled water in the Lord's hand. So we're again producing like spiritual water. Remember, to believe in Christ is to be attached to an everlasting spring of water. And so in the same way, a king, right, we have this valiant person who has risen up, who has now become someone who watches over and runs society, in the same way produces spiritual content that can nourish people spiritually. I apologize if the camera's shaking. I'm shaking my knee. So he directs it wherever he chooses. So God, in his supernatural majesty, will use the king's heart to water problems, to direct towards problems. And so when you're a king, right, you have the responsibility to run your society. And at the same time, God is going to push forward on his agenda and use your outpouring of heart to break through on kingdom agendas that he sets forth or that he sets needing focus. So there's one part in, I think, the book of Judges. Is that recording? Okay, good. Where oh, God says, like a mother cat, I'm going to teach my baby kittens how to fight. And so he says he's going to bring this army by so that way his people learn to fight. Maybe their military was lacking. They were too used to being protected by God. So God's going to do smart things, and we might struggle, but it's good for society. All right, verse 2. All a person's ways seem right to him, but the Lord weighs hearts. So it says this with King David, where a lot of people saw just this short kid, but God weighs the heart. And King Saul was the good-looking, obvious choice for king. But, God, in ways, another way of saying it is measures. So a lot of normal people will measure by how you look, the kind of car you drive, maybe what your job is. But God looks at the content of your heart. God sees the true person you are inside. And so this is a better way to judge things. Doing what is righteous and just is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. So a lot of people, especially in the past, will be like, oh, I sinned, but whatever, I apologize later. Or I sinned, but I give God my heart later. Or I sacrifice a bunch of, in the Bible, I sacrifice a bunch of offerings to him. Or now it'd be like, oh, I give the church a lot of money, so it's okay. It's like, well, no, it's not. I'm so upset that I'm starting this over. You have no idea. Okay. 4. The lamp that guides the wicked, haughty eyes, and an arrogant heart is sin. Now, I don't like to just use the word sin willy-nilly. It's kind of collected a lot of baggage over the years. The way the word sin works is we're talking about things that are contradictory to the nature and the values and the instruction of God. And sin is a really good word to use for people who are like, okay, I'm Christian, I'm going to do what the Bible says so. So someone steals and they keep stealing, I can go, hey, this is a sin, this is not what we do. Whereas when someone's brand new to the church, we're a lot more gentle. Like, hey, this is the church, this is what we believe, we don't think you're an evil person. You might be a sinner, but a sinner is like bad habits we want to correct. We're not saying you're worthless. You have bad habits and we need to stop them. And that's what's going on. We want to work with you and get you all fixed up. And if you're worried that we don't know what we're talking about, you can pray to God and he'll tell us like, oh, Joshua Charming, he knows what's going on. But this other person, don't listen to them. Or God will say like, what, this isn't your church. Let's go to this church over there. They know what they're talking about. Or God might say, you know what, why don't you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? You'll get a good idea of what I want. Because the goal of the Bible is that you drive towards God. So, yeah, obviously, if you're doing things like getting into fights and beating people up, we're going to try and rein you in a lot faster, than if you're stealing versus if you're lying, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, the lamp that guides the wicked, haughty eyes, like I'm so much better, and an arrogant heart, like you're worthless. So the Bible here is warning against certain attitudes. The plans of the diligent certainly lead to profit. And so that's good too. So diligent people, people that work hard, that aren't lazy, that don't waste their time being disobedient. There's a lot of different ways you can waste your time in life. And what this is saying is when you don't waste your time, when you're diligent, there's going to be profit. Maybe there'll be a little bit of profit or a lot of profit, but no matter what, your life will go in a good direction. But anybody who is reckless certainly becomes poor. And so we see that. We see, when I was at Texas State, I had to talk to my friends. Like, they were saying like, oh, why do I not have money? And I'd say, well, you're going to Starbucks twice a day. That's $20 a day to $30 a day at least. And then you're eating out 4 times a week. So that's another $60 a week on top of that. And then you're drinking at least twice a week. So that's another like $40 on top of that. So what is that? 60 plus 40 is 100, plus going to Starbucks, we'll say 5 days a week, which is another $100. So anyways, multiply that times 4, and you're looking at a large portion of your money lost. And then I said, and what are you buying for food? Are you buying like Hot Boxes and like Healthy Choice? Are you buying like rice and noodles and beans and vegetables and fruit? Like, let's look in your fridge. Like, there's your money. And she was like, oh, true. New video. Okay, making a fortune through a lying tongue is a vanishing mist, a pursuit of death. So it's trying to, so we've kind of started this with like a kingdom mentality. And we look at and we're kind of looking at different pieces of a kingdom, I suspect and perceive. So making a fortune through a lying tongue, you don't want to do that. You don't want to lie. Like, eventually people are going to catch on, and your reputation is going to be ruined, and your business is going to be ruined, and it won't be worth a thing. And running a business is hard, but there's also certain parts of it are easy. And this is going to make it impossible. The violence of the wicked sweeps them away because they refuse to act justly. So the author is saying it again. The violence of the wicked sweeps them away because they refuse to act justly. Oh, I thought someone was coming into my room. I was like, excuse me. The violence of the wicked sweeps them away because they refuse to act justly. The violence of the wicked sweeps them away because they refuse to act justly. The violence of the wicked. The violence of the wicked sweeps them away because they're... Yeah. So, violence is really bad, and we get caught up in that sort of mindset. Like, thug behavior is really bad, and God is warning us against thug behavior, because you can get caught up in thug culture and not want to act with justice. And you want to move yourself towards justice. And even if you don't believe in justice, then you want to work with heaven to bring justice to your community. So if your community has bad justice or bad law enforcement, you can work with God to make it righteous. You can work with God that bad cops are shut down or sent away and good cops move in. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things about corruption and things that keep society poor. If you read Thomas Sowell, it's very interesting. If you overtax, for example, an area, the people don't have money to spend within that area, and so the area doesn't become wealthy. A guilty one's conduct is crooked, but the behavior of the innocent is upright. A guilty one's conduct is crooked, but the behavior of the innocent is upright. So now we're separating different aspects of society so we can see it clearly. Sorry, it's just so cool to have like 2 cameras here. So you don't want to be guilty and crooked. It's identifying you and helping you to identify things. Because when you're caught up in thug and crime culture, sometimes you forget, because there's so much inertia and personality in crime culture, because when you're poor, you have to really develop your charisma in order to survive, because you're surviving pretty much only by your personality. But God here is separating the personality. Like, the guilty one's conduct is crooked. And so you're going to be like, oh, they're crooked, they have a guilty lifestyle, or they have a guilty lifestyle, they're probably moving somewhere crooked. But the innocent is upright. Okay, so I want to say innocent. I don't want to go to jail. I want to have kids, have a good life. I want to move forward. I want to get out of poverty. Upright. So I have to be upright. I want to be righteous. I want to move towards God. And it's not always the easiest or the funnest or the best, but it keeps those dreams and directions you're going alive. Okay, so now we're looking at like kingdoms, right? We're back kind of in the mentality of like dark living, either poverty or crime culture or thug culture. And we're on verse 9 now. Better to live on the corner of a roof than to share a house with a nagging wife. And someone said like you could kind of go up to your roof in where the Bible took place and kind of like chill there. And so it's saying like, and hang on, I'm going to look for any alternate ways of thought before I go on. So yeah, it looks like I was right. There's a lot of verses about how to be healthy, how to like keep your ego in check. And so, yeah, and you'll see this like on YouTube sometime. You'll see like the nagging wife, and you're just like, why? Like, why would you put up with that day to day? And the Bible saying, yeah, like if it's that bad, by all means go, because we're trying to turn life around. Like, by all means, spend time away from your wife to heal and recharge. Now, notice this doesn't say get divorced. The Bible and God are really big on marriage. Let what God puts together, let no one come between them. So it's important to pray for your spouse. It's important to pray with your spouse. I believe the study said that those who pray together once a day have like a 1% chance of divorce, because you talk about what's wrong and you also work with God. So whatever needs to be changed in each other's hearts will get changed. And that's a big deal. So if your wife is a bitch, she will slowly be matured and brought towards God. And if you're an arrogant, thick-headed asshole, your heart will get changed and brought slowly to God. And God is full of love and righteousness. And the two of you will disagree a lot, but as you become closer with God and more godly, you will be more full of love and the expression and the competency of love. So there's a story of a friend of mine where she got yelled at in a store, and it like made her cry, and she was really mad. And instead of like getting bitter, she said, God, can you like put it on that woman's heart to like call and apologize? And the woman did. She like called and apologized. And my friend was like, whoa, that was really interesting. But yeah, because, maybe your husband is an asshole because his parents and family members were jerks to him. And so he's always has his guard up because he doesn't know how, he's never been in a place where he could let it down. And maybe your wife is unloving because, in her childhood, everyone screamed at her and, there was no food on the table. So she's never known honest love. She doesn't know that you just have to stop and accept love. I had a friend who was just always hostile. And I had to sit her down one time and I said, look, this is my friend, Morgan. I said, look, I love you as a friend and I will always love you as a friend, and you just have to accept it. And she said, well, I don't know if I can do that. And I said, right. But I was raised by parents who were mostly level-headed and, and I do missionary work and I'm close with God and I have a degree in communication and I'm a constant. So we're going to assume that I am correct until I'm shown otherwise. But you have to at least try. And she says, well, I don't know if I can. I said, well, you have to do it anyway, because you are ruining our relationship because you're worried I'm going to be mean to you, maybe. And that's not how grown-up relationships work. Like, you have to give me a chance to be the person I say I am. And this is what growing up is, because we can't have a friendship if you're going to constantly be biting at me because that's what you've been taught. What you've been taught is not normal. And so you're going to have to try something new, and I'm the one offering something new. And so she went, okay. And then we had a good relationship, but I had to sit her down and say, like, this is not working. And if I make you mad, it is always by accident. And if you think I'm doing it on purpose, you have to use your words first. You have to have a conversation first. You can get mad, you can be mad, but we have to have the conversation first because it might be an accident. Because I love you, and my job is not to be mean to you. And she said, well, I don't feel like you're paying attention. And I said, well, that's because you have a big, big brain. You notice everything. You have a mind that remembers everything. I don't. I remember almost everything, and I process very quickly, but I don't have the breadth. I have a depth, but not the breadth that you have. So you need to understand that you have certain gifts that I don't. And she said, well, I don't know if I believe that. And I said, well, try. And then it was calm. Start another video here. Okay. Let's see here. A wicked person desires evil. Yeah, we know that. He has no consideration for his neighbor. So remember, the Bible, I'm making sure both these are recording, says love your neighbor as yourself. So that comes from the story of the Good Samaritan. So Jesus tells the story, you're walking down a road and you get mugged. You get beaten up and hurt and robbed. And this person who was a Samaritan, and the Samaritan was a different culture that the Jewish people weren't supposed to interact with. So it's very important that you're seeing someone that isn't of your own people, and he helps you get to the next town, and he pays for the hotel, and he says, like, hey, can you bring the doctor over here, and here's some money, and then if it's not enough when I come back, I'll pay the rest. Okay, just make sure this guy's taken care of. And during this story, like a pastor and a higher level pastor, because there's like different types of religious leaders in the Jewish community, they both pass you by and don't help. So that person, the Samaritan, is your neighbor. That person like has your back. And so that's important, is when it says your neighbor, he has no consideration for his neighbor. The neighbor is someone who has your back, not necessarily someone who believes in Jesus, not necessarily a friend or a spiritual brother like in a church, or someone you unconditionally love, which is the love Bible uses all the time. So a wicked person desires evil. We get that, right? And so we're saying we don't want to be wicked. So it's teaching us again what to look for in society to walk away from. This is important if you've grown up again in crime or thug culture. You don't want a part of that. You want to move away from that. And it's saying the wicked person has no consideration for his neighbor. And so it's teaching people who grow up in crime and poverty what to look for. Oh, my neighbor. Oh, yeah, like Joshua Charming. Like Joshua Charming's always inviting me out to donuts, or he brings me donuts, or he's always like, making sure I got coffee in the morning on church days. He's always saying hi. Like, I like that Joshua Charming. He's a what's the phrase? He's a pretty hoopy fruit who knows where his towel's at. It's a quote from a good book called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's good sci-fi. When a mocker is punished, the inexperienced becomes wiser. When one teaches a wise man, he acquires knowledge. Okay, so a mocker... So obviously it doesn't mean like we don't put someone who mocks in jail. But you'll see like debates on campus, right? You'll see the mockers. I don't know if you've looked up, his name's Cliff something. He does a lot of college debates, but you'll see really smart and wise people debate about God. Like, oh, God's okay with slavery. No, remember the story of Moses? Oh, well, in this other part, it says this about slavery. Well, so what happened in the Bible is they had basically indentured servitude, but every 8 years, all slaves were free. So that doesn't mean your contract was 1 to 8 years. It would be like saying, okay, in the year 2000, all slaves are free. In the year 2008, all slaves are free. In the year 2016, all slaves are free, or all rather indentured servants. So they had that. And that is very different from like, I own you as a human. So for example, if your debts got too big, you could be put into indentured servitude instead of being like put in jail, right? So instead of like having to be in jail, you work for whoever owes you money, and then it's called the year of Jubilee. Once the year of Jubilee comes, then you're free, and hopefully you've paid everything off. And then some contracts should be less than 8 years too. It's just 8. The 8 year was the max if you did your contract really, really early. But yeah, so the longest possible was 8 years based on time, not based on what you wanted. Because it was like 8 years on the calendar. When one teaches a wise man, he acquires knowledge. Yeah, whenever you sit down and you discuss with wise people, you're going to learn some stuff. Trying to think of some good examples. Someone came up to me and said, I said, oh, you look really cute today. And she just exploded. There's a lot of immaturity around there, around the world right now, because there's a lot of people who kind of were hermits, and the internet kind of gave them a place to communicate, and now they're having to grow up. And I'm not saying if you're one of those people you have to agree, but there's definitely going to be growing up. I say this with love. Like, you're going to learn some stuff, and you're going to teach us some stuff, but there's going to be learning. So I said, you look cute today. And she goes, I did not give you permission to look at me. And I said, okay, well, I mean, eyesight's the first form of communication, and then we talk. And she's like, okay, fine. And I said, you don't dress to be cute? And she's like, well, I guess I do, but I don't feel that it's right for men to like just check out women. And I went, well, if you spend your life going to the gym and you get very physically and sexually attractive, people are going to look at you. And she goes, well, that doesn't seem right. And I said, well, like only 25% of people go to the gym. So if you make yourself in the top 25% most beautiful people, and then only 10% of people go, and I'm just kind of assuming, these are kind of like guesstimates that I've heard. I don't necessarily know these are true numbers, but you kind of expect it to be in that ballpark, right? Not everyone goes to the gym. A small portion go to the gym. A smaller portion go to the gym regularly. And I go, so if you're in the top 10%, you're the top 10% more most beautiful people. People are going to go, wow, you're beautiful. And she said, well, just because people are fit doesn't mean they're more attractive or less attractive. And I said, you don't think like Thor is more attractive than a normal person? And she said, no. She like yelled at me. And I said, I thought for a second. I was like, what can I say to make her understand my point? I said, well, many people find some people more or less sexually attractive. They have what's called a sexual preference. It's not bad, just we prefer different things, and that's fine. And so going to the gym makes you more attractive, and then thus, people are going to say, wow, that doesn't give them an excuse to be perverted or creepy. And then she calmed down, and And if you ever come across really hostile people like this, switch into father mode, not argumentative mode, and you'll get there really fast. And so this is the way I feel that she learned by trying to teach a wise man, or what happens when you come into good conflict with someone who's wise. The Bible says, like, truly only God is wise, but at the same time, like, we can get some wisdom. It's good to pursue wisdom, just like samurai poetry. I do like some samurai poetry. I need to make a new video. Well, I'll finish this one up first. But there was a girl who... What happened? She was always fighting, just like in class. And finally I was like, hey, come here for a second. And she said, what? You're gonna try to tell me I'm wrong? Like, you know what you're talking about? Like, just venom. And I said, look. I don't necessarily agree with you, but I agree with what you're doing. Like, you have a heart to change the world, to be better, and that's what's motivating you and driving you. And she goes, yeah, and you don't get to tell me I'm wrong. I'm like, no, just hang on. All right, like, disagree with me after I've made my point. And see, a lot of these people, they don't get attention. So if you give them attention that comes free of charge, it like fills their heart, and then they're willing to change. I'm not saying you should change. I'm not saying you have to change. But when someone shows you true unconditional love, it prompts them to be like, okay, I'm going to listen now, because they're not getting that. There's not a lot of dads these days, and nobody's going to church to get replacement dads. So anyways, I say, look, you can yell at people, you can scream at people, and you'll do 4 great things in your life. But if you can learn to talk to them and engage and show them why they are wrong and let them tell you why they think they are right, they might not be right. But if you can listen and then communicate back, you'll do 1,000. That's all I'm saying. And she's just stopped and she thought about that. Like, I could feel the brain juice moving, like metaphorically. I could supernaturally feel the brain juice moving, the creases in her brain being made. And then she goes, huh, okay. And she never yelled again. Like, some people, they just need some love. New video time. Okay. Okay, 12. The righteous one considers the house of the wicked. He brings the wicked to ruin. The righteous one considers the house of the wicked. He brings the wicked to ruin. Okay, so now we're moving up in society, right? We're no longer got a criminal mindset, right? And I'm not trying to blame you for where you came from. I'm just saying we believe in Jesus because it makes us possessed by his holy power, and it helps us move forward and have self-agency. It helps us think clearly and think with love, right? Because in thug culture, it's like, I got to be strong and I got to be there for the people I care about. But in holy culture, it's love and sacrifice, right? And we do want to provide. We want provisions for those who matter. And this in the Bible is telling you exactly how to get it. And also you can pray to God. You have a supernatural help that you can call from. And you might be saying, like, I've never heard God's voice. He's never done anything for me. Well, pick 1 to 10 things, pray about them once a day, and like, you will unconditionally hear God. Okay, I kid you not. Like, things will move and you will start to hear him. And if not, someone will bring you the answer, but something will happen. Just don't stop praying. People stop and it's like, dude, you would have finished the race. Like, all you have to do in biblical culture is finish the race. It doesn't even matter if you're like first or last. Just finish the race you were on. Like, even Jesus collapsed, bringing the cross to the hill. And there was somebody there the person there was like I believe he was a slave, carried the cross for him, right? So Jesus, had every excuse to stop, right? His body, he had worked until his body collapsed. So, the question in his head is like, that probably Satan was telling him is like, why should you continue? You've already gone this far. You've gone till you collapse. Like, you don't need to go. And then a person of the lowest society carried the cross for Christ, that he might finish his mission, finish his life's calling, finish his dream that he was striving to do, which was to give us all access to heaven. Just like we were kicked out of garden, heaven is like the Garden of Eden version 2. Okay. Okay, so now, right, you've left thug culture, you're a righteous man. Maybe it's not even far behind you. Maybe you've only been righteous for like 120 seconds. You can start to do good work. I spend a lot of time praying against evil things, and you'd be surprised the stuff that changes when you pray. Like, whoa. So, like, if there's some evil things you don't like, maybe you don't like corrupt cops. Then the corrupt cops will start to go away and the righteous ones will flourish. Maybe you want more righteous cops. You can start praying for righteous cops and down with corrupt cops. Maybe you don't like the prison systems. Hey, God, I don't like the prison systems. They should teach the Bible. They should give free food. There should be more books. They shouldn't charge. Like, start praying for that. Maybe you live in California. You're like, oh, California, like, God, I pray for the corruption to come down. Help us with money. Help us with healthcare. Help us with college. Like, like get this monetary corruption out. And just start to watch. Like, pray about it every day. And then all of a sudden, it'll start to change. And when it starts to change, don't stop. Don't stop. And you can ask God, like, hey, this is pretty cool. Is there anything else? Anything else? Yeah, I started praying for people one time, and God would show me like these different people I was praying for. Like one time, so Jesus would hang out with tax collectors who society hated because a lot of tax collectors were corrupt and they'd kind of take a little bit more money. And he would hang out with prostitutes a lot because, prostitutes in many ways, I mean, now they're popular, but in the Bible time, they were like kind of low in culture. So I pray, there's a lot of porn stars I pray for, and then I'll be watching them, and then this interview will come up, and they'll be like, yeah, I quit porn today, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, hey. Or if I see, like, I like celebrities, right? And if I see a celebrity that I think is struggling, I'll be like, I really like that celebrity. I'll start praying for him, and then they'll say things like, oh, I'm sober now. And I'm like, whoa. Or you can hear a celebrity like, oh, man, I struggle with alcohol. I'm like, hey, I'm going to start praying for you. Like one time, a celebrity like Andrew Schultz, right? I was praying for him every day. And then all of a sudden on a podcast, he's like, I started going back to Catholic Church. And I was like, I wonder if I think I helped. I think I prayed. And because I prayed, God sent him extra angelic support and extra focus, right? Because we're supposed to run society, right? God is the God of heaven and of earth. He runs all of reality. And earth was here to be played, for us to be in charge of. The same way God is in charge of heaven and earth, we are in charge of earth, and God is in charge of earth. And so we work the nonsense out of earth. That was the curse, right? In the Garden of Eden, we were told not to eat from the tree, from this tree right here, and then we did, and it cursed the world. To now women suffer having babies, and men have to constantly fix the world because the world no longer takes care of itself. Because before, like, the water would rise and fall like under the ground, and like all the plants were constantly fed by this like underground tide. And now, like, we have to make sure the plants are fed and the plants are planted, and there's weeds and there's problems and there's sicknesses. So the one who shuts his ears to the cry of the poor will himself also call out and not be answered. So I think this is society, when the poor are crying for help and like there's no one at all. Like it's going to ruin you, it's going to ruin everyone. We have a lot of systems for poor, and like America's pretty darn cool for poor. Like you don't see like skinny poverty like you do in other countries. And I'm not saying poverty is good, but poverty is interesting. It's tricky because you have like drug addicts that you need to get off drugs so they can like work and gain money. And then you have just people who don't want to, people who just want to live on the streets. And then you have people who genuinely want help. And so it's a very interesting issue that you can't just throw money at. Like there's one guy who says like, hey man, I'll hire you. He says like, I do contracting and I do lawn care. I'll hire you. You gotta get clean. I'll pay for you to get clean. And a lot of people are like, really? No joke? Like, yeah. Okay. All right, man. I got a program. You're gonna work the program. Yeah. 14, a secret gift soothes anger, and a covert bribe, fierce rage. So, I mean, here's a good story. I had a guy I knew in college, right? And I was really being sarcastic with this girl he liked. Like me and this girl were really chill. And we used to play video games together, and so I was just picking on her just for fun, and I was being, like, oh yeah, just saying dumb things, and she was saying dumb things back, and we're just being stupid. And he got so mad. He's like, hey man, why don't you effing leave her alone? I can't believe you're effing talking. Why don't you I was like, whoa, like we're just joking around. And I looked at her and said, right? And she's like, yeah, he's fine, we're fine. He's like, oh okay, well I don't think you should be talking that way. And he just went on and on, and I tried to read his personality, and I felt he just had this like heartache to be known for being good, the struggle. I don't think his parents were really around. I think he was suffering because no one ever showed him love or kindness or any sort of wealth. Because the Bible says, like, when someone's hungry, don't talk about God, feed them. And so there was a pizza place that was next door, and let's start another video here. Okay, so there was a pizza place next door, and I said, oh hey, we're gonna go next door and study and get some pizza. Like, do you want to come and hang out? And he's like, yeah, I guess, whatever. I don't have any money. I'm like, well, just come and sit with us. It's like, all right. And so we're sitting down, and the pizza place, what was it called? Double Dave's, I think. Yeah, they do an all-you-can-eat buffet during lunch. It's like, at the time it was like $8.50, and I think a drink was like probably $2.50. And I said, hey, I'm gonna get some pizza. Do you want me to get you anything? And he said, no, man, like, I don't have any money. And I said, no, I got you. What do you want? And he goes, I don't have any money. And I could see the walls melting and breaking. But, like, he didn't want to trust what I said. He's like, I don't have any money. And I said, no, I got you. Like, what do you want? He goes, I can't afford it. Because, like, the different pieces of his personality are all crying out for the same thing. He's like, I don't have any money. I'm like, I got you. Like, there's no problem, man. Like, I just got paid. Don't worry about it. It's only $8.50. What do you want? Oh, give me this, this, and this. I'm like, all right. What do you want to drink? And he goes, I don't have any money. I'm like, I got you. Want lemonade? What do you want? He goes, yeah, can I get a Coke? I'm like, sure. And I got him some pizza, and I'm like, it's cool, man. It's on me. Like, don't worry about it. I got you. And he just melted, and you could just feel like new warmth. He never said anything mean again. And that's important to know, is like, you can thug up or try to like fight someone down, but a lot of times people just need to know God loves them, or like a little bit of generosity really melts the thug. So that's a secret gift soothing anger, right? Where a covert bribe, fierce rage. So, you maybe you have a secret. It's just going to boil. Like, someone cheated and you like bribe them. You're going to take something and make it worse instead of taking something and make it better, right? Like a secret gift, boom, better, soothes out anger. A secret bribe, you're taking something and you're doing leverage. You're like twisting someone's arm and making it worse. Fierce rage. So it's helping teach, if you're used to like crime culture, to how to get out of crime culture. And so that's why that's important. That's why this is interesting, right? Because if you don't know, you don't know. And someone has to teach you. I've gotten into an argument with my mom quite a few times about that. Well, they should know that they should bring something. And I said, did you ask? Well, they should just know. Did you ask? Well, they should just know. Mom, you gotta ask. Mom, you gotta use your words. No, they should just know. Like, like, don't cry to me. Justice executed is a joy to the righteous. Yeah. So, like with the Epstein things, we want to see righteousness. With all the money being laundered and stolen in America, we want to see justice. We haven't seen a lot of justice. I'm going to start praying about that. I'm just worried. Because if we just see arrest, I need to replace it with righteousness, with holiness, with Christ. I need it to be replaced with awesomeness and goodness. Justice executed is a joy to the righteous, but a terror to evildoers, right? And that's one of the problems we have in our country right now is all these elegant upper-level politicians are getting away with everything. And the reason for that is the church hasn't been praying and watching over the government like we're supposed to. We got really stupid and we just said, oh, do whatever you want. Like, we don't need to help run the government. It's like, no, Jesus needs to like be just like possessing us, possessed in the government. Like, Jesus needs to be in all things in reality. And we're pretending that if Jesus isn't there, things will run just great because people instinctively want to be great. No, they don't. People instinctively want to do whatever they want. The person who strays... Oh, I have to get a drink of water. Oh, I got coffee here. That kind of counts. The person who strays from the way of prudence will come to rest in the assembly of the departed spirits. So it's very politely and elegantly saying, you gotta stick to... How do you even explain what the word prudence means? Okay, so an old Hebrew way means to be smart and to watch out. And then another way was good decision-making skills. I think the slang is kind of thoroughly diligent. So the person who moves away from being smart and diligent or watching out will come, and they're very elegantly saying, to be dead. We'll come to the rest in the assembly of the departed. We'll come to rest in the assembly of the departed spirits, which means dead. It's very elegantly saying, and dead. So yeah, so again, if you're from poor culture or insanity culture or nonsense culture, it's saying like, hey. The one who loves pleasure will become poor. There's a lot of wisdom in that one. The one who loves pleasure will become poor. Whoever loves wine and oil will not get rich. Yeah, so spending your money on alcohol and drugs will ultimately not take you anywhere. I'm going to write that one down in Josh's notes. I'll be right back. Whoever loves wine and oil will not get rich. So these are important. So you've grown up poor, right? And a lot of our current thug culture and kind of poverty culture, everyone thinks it's good to have a bunch of bodies, which is to say have sex with a whole bunch of different people. And this is ridiculous because a really good way to put it that doesn't sound obvious but kind of is that you notice how people who are having a lot of different sexual partners are always hungry for more sexual partners. The people who are happily married have a number of different things that make them happy. Russell Brand put it really well. He said, the only thing on my mind was getting more drugs, getting my next fix. And he said, the reason I knew I was wrong is everyone else had 1,000 things they cared about, and I only had one. And I'm not trying to stifle your desire and your runningness to move your heart towards what moves you and what calls to you. But the reciprocation of reflecting upon the eternal power of God rests in moving in his ways that facilitate eternal power. So if you want to move your buddies out of poverty or keep them out of poverty, and you want to move along with people who are going to help facilitate you not being poor and you being rich, you need to involve yourself with people that move and think like this, right? Because a lot of your friends who are moving and thinking like, I want to have sex with all these different people, I want to have all these different drugs, I want to party all the time, I want to be lazy, all of these attributes by themselves aren't moving you up in wealth and eternity. And altogether, they're moving you away from wealth and eternity fast. I knew one girl in college, and she was really upset. She's like, yeah, this degree I have is worthless, and I took out all this student loan money for it. And I looked at her and I said, why did you take student loan money out? Like, didn't you talk to anyone about your degree? Because she got a gender study degree. And she goes, well, everyone said I had to go to college. And I said, well, the point of student loan money is to get a degree in something that makes a lot of money, like programming, being a doctor, the STEM things, engineering. And so you take out loan money, but you get this job that makes a lot of money. And if you have a calling, like you really want to be a teacher or, teachers have loan forgiveness now too, but, you want to be these other things like a painter. You maybe want to do community college because like getting your master's in painting isn't going to spend a lot of time on just painting. It's going to teach you like the history and stuff, and that's expensive. And you could just see her go, oh. I'm like, you didn't have any friends or family that like talked to you about this first? And she said, no. I said, wow. Because I had to take a class in that in high school and a class in that in college when I was in California. Oh man, it was so weird. I was in a senior class, and we're talking about job applications. Junior class. And this is in college. And I was telling people, because I'm really good at job interviews. I'm really good. Because again, I had to take a class on just getting a job in high school, and then I had to take one in college on how to get a job. And it was like, make sure you brag about all your strengths. And all the girls in class said, oh, well, bragging's bad, you shouldn't brag. And so many people would say that, and I would say, guys, lots of job experience here. Lots of like super big job. I've worked for Bandai. I've worked for Blizzard. And my friends, hire for these like 100,000 jobs a year. So when I say brag, I know what I'm talking about. Even the teacher was like, guys, like, it's not the job interviewers. Like, the job interviewer is supposed to pull out your good qualities, but that's like your job more than his to express your great qualities. I was like, oh my gosh, nobody wants to listen to me. Verse 18, the wicked are a ransom for the righteous. The wicked are a ransom for the righteous, and the treacherous for the upright. Okay, so that makes sense. So the wicked are like a burden to the righteous. A ransom means like, you can't have this until you pay me, right? Like, I'll give you back your kid, but you have to give me $2 million. So the wicked are running around ruining society, and the righteous people get caught not being able to do wonderful things while they're there. So look, for example, for how much money the elite are stealing from people in America through taxes and through money exploitation. Whether or not you agree with people like Nick Shirley, you've seen all the corruption where all this money that's supposed to go to like medicine is supposed to go. All this money that was supposed to go for daycares is supposed to go. And we can argue about a lot of things. You can say, like, oh, well, these people need daycare. Sure. But the money for daycare needs to go to daycare, not these empty buildings, right? And even if you don't like what I'm saying politically, you can understand what I'm saying spiritually, that wicked people, like, you see all the millions and billions of dollars they're stealing in the government, and people will say, we need to pay more taxes. And I'll say, why? So they can, you know, start plays in third world countries. Like, and that was one of them. That was literally one of them. And the treacherous for the upright. So people who want to live an honest life, they're people who just stab you in the back. And you're like, I'm trying to get somebody. Here's a good example. I'm trying to get this guy not to be put in prison because he did something dumb. He did something dumb once. And then you have someone who's just trying to increase their career and just throw everyone in prison, right? That's bad. And that's another reason we need to pray against corruption and help polish our society. Drink some coffee. It's good coffee. That's the, I think it's like a blueberry coffee from Knott's Berry Farm. Super tasty. I only drink decaf, or I'd be up for like ever. Okay. 19. Better to live in a wilderness than with a nagging and hot-tempered wife. So there's a lot of ways we understand this. One, choose your wife. And this is one of the reasons why it's smart, right? In the Bible, we don't date. They didn't have a dating culture. They would, begins with a C, not covert, not covet, court. You'd court someone, see if you guys are on the same page, one of the same things, got along, we're smitten with each other. And then if you wanted to, you'd get married. But right now we're like playing house. You're trying to like, oh, like, ugh, I have to test drive her first. Like, dude, if you want to know if you're going to have a good time with sex with your wife, you talk to God about it. Hey, God, can my wife be really good at sex? Can we have really great sex? Can she want to have sex all the time? Talk to God about that. He'll answer you. Just keep asking. And I say this as somebody who does a lot of miracles. Okay, so it's also saying choose. It's also saying be smart. It's also saying it's not your job to endure the beratement. It's okay that you don't like it. It's a good place to like ask God for help. It's okay to kind of like, it's okay to want to spend time alone. It's okay to try to spend time alone. If she's just super nasty, like, yeah. And then it's good to work towards praying together. And when people are nasty like that, when they're kind of psychotic, pray for them and you'll see them start to change. I've done that a lot. And then also for like, if you're a wife and you're like, why is my husband always running away? Have you checked yourself? Have you asked God? There was this woman, I think she was Vietnamese, so they can get kind of teethy, kind of like cruel. And she said, like, God, you need to fix my husband. And God said, go apologize. And she's like, what? What about everything he does wrong? And God said, I will tend to that. Just go apologize. And she did. And then he changed, right? He saw that she changed. And he's like, well, I'm going to change too now. And they had a loving marriage. There was another woman. It was such a beautiful story. Start another video here. It's such a beautiful story. Oh, here too. Okay. So they were going to get divorced. It just wasn't working, which isn't an excuse you get to use if you're Christian. Well, anyways, I'll talk about divorce when it's time to talk about divorce. mostly you're not supposed to divorce, because it's just like you have a brother and a sister. Like your wife is, it's the same connection. It's a family connection. You don't get to just bail on your family. Like heaven reinforces marriage, and so we work at it. Anyway, so they were both in the same place. Like, the husband was like, I don't love you anymore, and she didn't love him. And he's like, I'm not going to stay married to you. They're sleeping in different rooms. And then she decided she wanted to be married. And so she started like cooking, like she'd make herself breakfast, but she started like cooking breakfast for her husband. And then she'd make lunch for her husband, and she'd make lunch or dinner for her husband. And he'd say like, this is nice, but this doesn't change anything. I'm not going to stay with you. We're going to get divorced. And he kept saying that for like a couple weeks. And then he stopped saying it. And then he wanted to work on the marriage. And now they're like happily married. She's like, yeah, I just decided to try. I decided to have generosity. Generosity goes a long way. Sorry, my brain went to a bunch of thoughts. 20, precious treasure and oil are the dwelling of a wise person, but a fool consumes them. So oil, like cooking oil, olive oil, it was worth a lot, right? You could also use it for like anointing and in religious services. So they're like a treasure that you put away, and let it be like an investment, or let it be like a savings account. But it's saying a fool just like drinks it away, like, spending your emergency money on gambling, like what? Or spending your emergency money on parties, like your friends and wife are gonna be like, what? That was your emergency money. That's for like if you lose your job or something. And then the same thing. Yeah, the same thing with oil. So it's like it's a finance. So don't just burn your money because you're bored or kind of like possessed by irritation. Like there's a lot of horrible things in life, but you need to work your way past it and snap yourself past it, or you're just going to like stay here, and you don't want to have to stay here. You want to be able to move forward, have society move forward, etc. The one who pursues righteousness and faithful love, oh, it is really sweet, will find life, righteousness, and honor. That's good. That's what I try to do. The one who pursues righteousness. Can I not copy that on my iPad? I guess not. The one who pursues righteousness and faithful love will find life, righteousness, and honor. It's a beautiful verse. I think I'm going to write it down. Okay. So that one's pretty self-explanatory. So this one's also really good if you come from thug culture, because now you know where the stats are at. Now you know where that type of life that you've always felt you lived before, this is how you're going to live as like a friend of Christ. So by pursuing righteousness, by trying to be righteous, right, smart, do the right thing. Like I'm someone who, in my understanding of what is right, tries to do the right thing. When you do that, you're going to find life. So like a full bowl of life, right? That's what you've been trying to do. Like the life you can share with your buddies. You've got like riches now. You've got a good car. You can go places, go to concerts, like look after your kids, have good family events. And then you'll have righteousness. You'll have that sort of like and awesome caretaker of society that you've looked for your whole life, and honor. And so not only that, people will be like, oh, home dude, that dude's honorable. Like, You know, that woman there, she's honorable. Like, you know, go her. Like, I want to be like her. 22. A wise person went up against a city of warriors and brought down its secure fortress. So yeah, so even and I've done a lot of this, right? I pray against evil, and then I'll watch these evil institutions fall. Um, so um, so this is really important because so wise is like someone, or chachma according to the Bible, which means like a master craftsman, but in the form of kind of biblical smartness, right? Um, you can take down anything, right? You don't like the corruption. See, all these people might be super safe in their own head. You know, oh, I've got all this money and I've got all these people and I've got all these secrets. Like, who's going to really hurt me? But you start praying to God. They're just a normal dude. Like, all these evil people, they can't do anything when God steps in. God can take down the most evil person as easily as he takes down anything. So you don't have to worry about how safe they are, how much money they have. Um, like when I was praying against abortion, I was like, there's no way. Like, it's so protected. And God said, am I not God? Can I not do anything? And I was like, whoa. I've never heard you talk to me like that. I was like, okay. And so I started praying. And then, like, 2 weeks later, they overturned Roe versus Wade. And I was like, what? What? Are you kidding me? Like, that's such a big deal. So if there's something you don't like about evil, even if it's like corrupt cops, right? Now I'm very pro good cop, right? I think that we're taught through TV and the media that like all cops are evil, and it's really there's like a few. So you can pray for that, and you can pray, but also pray that the good cops get lots of help. And then you can also pray that like everyone in, you know, the ghetto or poverty meets Jesus, and we start turning it around and making like good choices, and your friends get turned around and make good choices and find good jobs. God, I had one friend who spent like $240 a week on cigarettes. I was like, dear Lord, wow. So yeah, so wise person. I want to write that one down too. I'll be right back. Sorry, that one was just so good. God, I'm going through these episodes so slow today. The one who guards his mouth and tongue keeps himself out of trouble. So this is important because like we want to mouth off, right? Especially if you're from poverty culture, because you're not allowed to let anyone like make you look dumb, right? But when you're at a job, oh man, this one time, this manager, right? So supervisor and then manager, she yelled at me. She's like, "Are you done with your work yet?" And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "What?" And you would have thought I set her on fire. She yelled so loud. "Why didn't you tell us? We've been radioing for you." And I don't think she knew there was another Josh that I think was also part of their department. She thought I was that Josh. And I had already told my supervisor. So I was like, I'm done? Like, what? And she yelled at me. And oh man, I'm half Mexican, right? And sometimes the Mexican, right? I'm just a little bit cholo. Like, he just, like, oh my God, I was going to start just smarting off, mouthing off. I was going to insult like her dog, and I was going to insult maybe her mom, but definitely not her abuela, because we don't do that. And oh my God, I was so ready just to be like I took in the breath, and I noticed like my mind was starting to like rapid load just insults and smartery that I could just hurl at her. But I like my job. I have an easy job. It pays me a lot of money. And I was like, and I hate job hunting. Oh my God. Because you're like, where's the money going to come from? I don't have any savings. I have bills, blah, blah, blah. And I go, here's what we're going to do, Josh. I just say to myself, we're going to shut our jaw. We're going to close it. And we're not going to speak for 5 minutes. It doesn't matter what happens in those 5 minutes. If someone says, are you okay? If someone says, Josh, you have work to do. No matter what happens, we are not going to open our jaw for 5 minutes. And then you won't say anything stupid. And you can have a job tomorrow. And you want to have a job tomorrow. You love having a job tomorrow. That's what you're going to do, Josh. Want to have a job? We're not going to. So I went, and like the muscles on my neck were tensing, and like she saw it. And I was like, And like people walked by and they're like, "Are you okay? Are you done?" And I just said nothing, and they ignored me. I was like, "Oh, thank God they ignored me." Like, I don't want to get into it. I was just like, I was so mad. But then 5 minutes later, I calmed down and I still had a job. I was like, "See, worth it. What would I have gotten mouthing off to my boss's boss? Nothing, nothing. But I would have lost my job. I would have gotten in so much trouble." And my supervisor came by and she said, "Do you want me to go to HR?" And I was like, "Oh, God bless you for having my back." And I said, no, maybe her dog died. Maybe she got divorced. Everyone gets one. Like, I don't, it's fine." And I prayed. I was like, "God, can you like move her away from me?" And then I found out the next day she switched to the morning shift, and that was like her last day there. And I was like, "Oh, thank God." So a person who guards his mouth and tongue keeps himself out of trouble. So I stayed out of all sorts of trouble. All sorts of trouble. Yeah, when I was a bouncer, my boss was drinking and he came up one time and like a bunch of people were trying to start a fight and I was calming everyone down, and then he came up and he started to like, he didn't watch his mouth, and so he started to mouth off and everyone started ramping up, and I turned and I said, "You get downstairs." He goes, "Hey, you can't talk to me like that." I'm like, "I can when you're drinking." And he goes, "Okay, okay, okay." And he went downstairs. I think he said like I was mean to him later. I'm like, "Well, stay out of my door." And he said, "Okay, I'm sorry." I was like, "Rah!" So yeah, keeps himself out of trouble. Good stories, right? I give you guys good stories, so I love you guys. All right, the arrogant and proud person named Mocker, right? You see a lot of that in the debate videos. Acts with excessive arrogance, and we see that a lot. Like, ha ha ha, you can't prove. Someone said that to me once. They said, "You can't prove, we don't know that there was a Jesus." And I said, "No, we know there was a Jesus. We definitely know there was a Jesus. There's like 2,400 books that mention Jesus." And one of them, because she still didn't believe me, I was like, one of them is really cool. It was this guy from like Egypt. And he said, he might not have been from Egypt, but this guy says, "Of course Jesus resurrected. He came from Egypt. Of course he knows magic. Like, why wouldn't he know how to resurrect? He came from Egypt. They do magic in Egypt." And I thought that was a funny story. But I was telling her, I was like, "No, we definitely, like, every historian knows that Jesus existed. We just don't know that he resurrected," right? A lot of people don't know about the resurrection. That's the big mystery, is Jesus God? But we all know that Jesus lived." And she said, "Okay, fine." Like, there's only so many books. Like, there's only so many books that prove Plato existed or this guy existed. Like, how many books are you going to write about people? So again, it's warning us, like, don't be careful about acting with extreme arrogance. Be careful about mocking. It's just not a good way to live. 25. A slacker's craving will kill him because his hands refuse to work. So it's really warning you about being a slacker. You ever seen Back to the Future? Incredible movie, one of the best movies ever. There's a principle that goes, "You're a slacker," and there's truth to that. Before the PlayStation 2, the jocks, right, the people who played a lot of sports, they would usually flame out after high school. Like, after high school, they'd end up working these like dead end jobs and being miserable. Some of them would go on to play college, but not a lot. But a lot of these sport jocks had real slacker lifestyles and ended up doing nothing. And it does. It's like killing them. What else to say? He is filled with craving all day long, but the righteous give and don't hold back. So the slacker is always hungry, but the people who have lived righteously, they can give and give and give and not even hold back. And because they have so much to give, because they were diligent, right? They were prudent. They worked hard. They got stuff done. And that was a lot of the nerds who were bullied and beat up. They would go to college, become programmers, become engineers, and then make good money, and they had all this money to give. What happened during the PlayStation 2 era, it was really cool, is the jocks liked the sport video games, and the nerds had the video games. So the nerds would play video games with the jocks, and the jocks taught the nerds to shower and wear good clothes and how to talk to women. And the nerds taught the jocks to get good at school, and that if they went to college, they'd have money and they could date the women they wanted to and live the lives, the like luxury lives they wanted. So it's really interesting. The sacrifice of a wicked person is detestable. How much more so when he brings it with ulterior motives? So the sacrifice of a wicked person isn't going to accomplish anything. It's just they're up to no good, or doing no good, or furthering plans that are no good. But even more so when they have sneaky ulterior motives. You know, you've seen these with drug addicts, how they play on your emotions to get what you want, get what they want. And then they just play on your emotions. I had a friend whose sister tried to do that. She's like, oh, you know, can I have $100 for some weed? I was like, dude, what you need is to get out there and get a good job and move out of your house. I'm not gonna give you $100 just so you can smoke. And she tried to play on it like, oh, come on, please, man, da-da-da. And I was a painter at the time. I was like, you know, I need a model for one of my classes for painting. And it was G-rated. She could have like come dressed up however she wanted. I was like, I'll give you $100 for like 4 hours of work. Like I need someone to model. And she was like, oh, come on, da-da-da. I was like, dude, I'm offering you $25 an hour just to like stand there and chill and like wear a silly hat or something. If you can't even be bothered to do that, you're not the sort of person I want to like help at all. She was trying to be a drummer. I'm like, dude, like, show up with your drumsticks or something. Wear a cool drummer outfit. That'd be cool. New video. I'll do a new one here since I'm looking. A lying witness will perish, but the one who listens will speak successfully. So if you're, and this is again trying to pull you out of the criminal culture, right, out of a bad society. It's showing you what's good character so you can learn this, so you can be rich and your family can be rich and you can be so rich you can take care of everyone and your life will be full and you'll have everything. So in worldly culture where we just do what we want for pleasure, we'll try to like have a whole bunch of women or have a whole bunch of drugs, and we'll try to do these two things that don't really fulfill us because they're not spiritually or metaphysically or supernaturally designed to do that. But what God's doing is designing you to have some of everything and then more of everything. But the one who listens will speak successfully. So the one who listens for good advice, for goodwill, for good smartness, for good knowledge, you're going to speak and everything's going to be successful and you're going to be safe and secure from evil, from jail. Being righteous keeps you safe. Like, there's just so many times people have been stupid in my life and I'm like, whoa, we're going to like respect the law and not do this stupid thing. And then things turn out well because like, you know, I haven't been up to no good. Here's a good story. So one time we were getting pulled over on the freeway and I didn't know this, but California changed the law. You're not supposed to pull off on the freeway. You're supposed to get off the freeway. But we couldn't hear the cop and he was yelling at us. He's like, turn down the radio. Maybe you can hear me. And we're like, the radio's off. It's just so loud because the wind. And so finally we're like, maybe we're supposed to get off the freeway. So we got off the freeway and he comes up and he goes, why weren't you listening to me? And we can mouth up, right? What does it say? Guard your tongue, act righteous, like love your neighbor. And so my buddy, he goes, "I'm so sorry, officer. It was my fault. We didn't have the radio on. We were trying to listen to you, but we couldn't hear it. And we thought pull over. And then we finally heard you and we pulled off the freeway. And here we are. My bad." And the cop just flipped his phone. He said, "Hey, man, no problem. I'm sorry. I thought you were. You got a tail light out. Just want to let you know." I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much, officer. We'll get that done right away." She says, "Cool. I'm not giving you a ticket. I'm just let you off with a warning." And just, and another time we were speeding to get home because we were going to get in trouble. And this cop comes next to us and he goes, "Slow down." And my friend goes, "Okay." Because and the cop, I think it was like the end of shift because it was like 5 o'clock and the cop left. And we're like, "Okay." Like, "Yes, sir." and we got out of trouble because of that. Okay, so yeah. The sacrifice of a wicked person is detestable. Oh, no, we did that one already. A wicked person puts on a bold face. We've seen that. But the upright one considers his way. So the wicked person, they're not even thinking. They're just like, "Yeah, I know what I'm doing. Of course I know what I'm doing." And then the upright, the righteous, the honest person will take a second to be sure. Will take a second, think about it. Take a second, like be like, is it? And I'm trying to think of a good story for that one. The wicked person puts on a bold face. The upright one considers his way. A wicked person puts on a bold face. But the upright one considers his way. A wicked person puts on. It's pretty self-explanatory. A wicked person puts on a bold face, but the upright one considers his way. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't have any stories for that I can think of right now. All right, 30. No wisdom, no understanding, no counsel. No wisdom, no understanding, no counsel will prevail against the Lord. So if other people come up and they go, "Oh, there's like other ways, other philosophies, other ways you can live." No, because God is perfect, which is hard for us to understand supernaturally, but it's a supernatural truth. God is perfect and all-knowing, all-powerful, everywhere, or all places, knowing, power, places. There's like two more. So all of this, so nothing will prevail against the Lord, right? Because the Lord is super duper. So as your finality of getting out of like crime culture, poverty culture, or just riffraff or whatnot, when there is danger, you have to remember that God is absolute, which is terrifying sometimes. They were talking. Someone was arguing with Jordan Peterson, and they were saying like, isn't there a time where you'd break your rules? Like, what if your children were in danger? And that's terrifying because like there are times when Christians have to say, "No, I'm not allowed to do that." There was one girl, she was in class and the teacher said, "Oh, there's all these different gods. Why don't we pretend to worship the sun god?" And she said, "No, I'm a Christian. Like I can't pray to other gods." And the teacher, I think there was something demonic. The teacher like started bullying her, like, "No, that's the assignment. Let's do this." And the teacher kept yelling and screaming. And finally the teacher's like, "Oh," or the substitute teacher was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind." And that's tricky. So like when I was in Japan, my friend wanted to see the temples, right? And we like pour water out over the idols to symbolize respect. And so he was like, can you go to a temple? I was like, yeah, I can go to a temple. And he goes, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to nod. So the ceremony that as a foreigner, you like nod to respect the idol. And I was like, nope. He's like, and then we're just going to pour water over it. And I was like, nope. And he's like, come on. It's like, it's not a God. Like, I understand it's not a God. I'm like, I can't do it. No, no, no. And I was like, do you want to see my supernaturalness come back? Because he's seen some things happen around me that he's like, that was you, wasn't it? Like, yeah, sorry. So when things get bad, or when people try and bully you to do something evil or like crime, you have to remember to trust God and tell them no. And something that works really well for me is I'll be like, hey man, instead of doing this, why don't I pray for you and help you find a good job? And the guy will say like, oh, I don't need your help. And I'll be like, yeah, but like, this isn't the way. Like, maybe you get here and you make some money, stealing, but like, let's work with God. And like, don't you want to do something cool? Like be a photographer? Like there's jobs out there you're not going to mind to do. Like, let's do those jobs. Or I'll say like, give me 2 weeks and we'll pray and we'll get you something great. Proverbs 21:31. A horse is prepared for the day of battle, but victory comes from the Lord. So those great things that help you in the event of conflict, it's all good and prepped, but the victory comes from God. So you need to remember to have God like with you in your pocket, because God's the one who turns it one way or the other. You have to stay with God. You can't just use God where you want to and then ignore him later. I would tell people, oh, I have high anxiety. People would say, oh, I have high anxiety. And I would say, like, are you eating healthy food? How much Starbucks are you having? Are you sleeping 8 hours a day? Are you sleeping 4 hours a day? Are you exercising at all? Especially if you used to exercise a lot. And then I would say, do you take 1 day a week off? Like in Christianity, one of the 10 commandments is taking 1 day a week to rest and not do homework and just relax. Are you doing that? I'm not Christian. I'm like, yeah, but when your brain knows that 1 day a week is there just to chill, it turns off a lot of problems because your brain goes, oh, it's okay on Sunday. So like I was working 40 hours a week and I was a full-time student. And so on either Monday or Wednesday or Tuesday or Thursday, I'd get to school at like 7 and I'd be at school till like 10 o'clock at night. And then I had 1 day to do all my homework. And then I would do like, right, Sunday off, Monday, homework, Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, and then I'd work like 3 9s. No, 3 10s. Yeah. That was when I went down to, eventually went down to 30 hours a week. I was at 40 hours a week. But then since I had Sunday off, I'd always be like, it's okay, like Sunday's off and that's chill. I love you guys. I guess I'll try to do the fantasy voice. Oh, my hand hurts from holding the phone. I still have this phone running up here too. So I do the golem one again. Thanks. Kind of sounds like an evil undead spirit, like a smog spirit from like Ferngully, but not Tim Curry. And to the heart's hand. He directs it wherever. Oh, my battery's running low. Wow. I used that much battery? What's the other one at? Oh, they're both low. Exit wherever he chooses. I can't do these long. All a person's ways seem right to him, but the Lord weighs hearts, doing what is righteous and just is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. One more. Oh, that's hard. The lamp guides the wicked. Haughty eyes and arrogant heart is sin. All right, I love you guys. I got to charge both of these. Bye-bye.